You really did it, didn't you? You stepped into the place everyone warned you about. The place where excuses stop working. Where comfort can't protect you anymore. Where every version of yourself that depended on approval starts falling apart. Most people spend their entire lives standing at the edge, staring into uncertainty, convincing themselves they'll make the move tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes another year. Then one day they wake up surrounded by the same regrets they promised they'd escape. But you crossed the line, not because you were fearless. Fear was there the whole time. Your hands shook, your mind filled with every possible way things could go wrong. The difference is you stopped asking fear for permission. That's the moment people begin to misunderstand you. They think you've changed overnight. They think success made you different. They never saw the private battles, the nights you questioned everything, the moments you wanted to quit but kept moving anyway. They only noticed you once your decisions became impossible to ignore. The strange thing about growth is that it feels dangerous before it feels rewarding. The moment you leave what's familiar, the people who stayed behind start treating your courage like a mistake. They'll call you reckless because your confidence exposes their hesitation. They'll hope you come back because your progress reminds them of the chances they never took. Every meaningful step forward demands that something old stays behind. Sometimes it's your comfort. Sometimes it's your habits. Sometimes it's the version of you that cared too much about fitting in. The world celebrates bold moves only after they work. Before that, it laughs, it doubts. It watches waiting for you to fail so everyone else can feel safer about never trying. That's the price of walking where most people refuse to go. There comes a moment that almost nobody notices. No music plays, no crowd applauds, no miracle appears in front of you. It's just one quiet decision buried beneath all the noise in your head. A decision so small that the world ignores it, but so powerful that your entire future begins to orbit around it. The strange part is that nothing outside changes first. The room is the same, the people are the same, even your reflection looks identical. But inside, something snaps. Not in a destructive way, in a liberating way. The invisible chain you've been dragging for years suddenly feels lighter because you finally realize it was never locked. You were holding it the entire time. Every time you waited for someone to approve your dream. Every time you asked whether you were good enough, smart enough, talented enough, you handed another person the keys to a life that belonged only to you. Permission became your addiction. You convinced yourself that one day the right person would arrive, look you in the eyes, and declare that now you're ready to become who you've always wanted to be. Funny, isn't it? People who are still trapped in their own fears somehow become the judges of your future. You stand in line hoping someone who never built your life will authorize you to live it. That's the greatest illusion ever sold. Nobody is coming with a certificate that says you're finally worthy. Nobody wakes up thinking about whether you should chase your purpose. They are too busy negotiating with their own doubts. Yet you keep waiting as if your clock was designed differently from everyone else's. Every day you hesitate, life quietly signs another contract without asking for your opinion. Opportunities move on. Time keeps collecting interest. The version of you that could have existed slowly fades into imagination. Then one day you wonder why nothing changed, while forgetting that you never changed the only thing that mattered. Your decision. The moment you stop asking for permission is the moment excuses lose their favorite hiding place. Suddenly, you can't blame your family, your friends, your critics, your circumstances, or your bad luck. That's terrifying because responsibility is heavier than comfort. Freedom sounds exciting until you realize it also means every victory and every failure belongs to you. Most people don't fear failure nearly as much as they fear ownership. It's easier to point at closed doors than admit you never reached for the handle. It's easier to complain about the system than risk discovering what you're actually capable of. That's why permission feels safe. It gives you someone else to blame. But the second you decide that your choices no longer require applause, something unusual happens. The opinions that once controlled your emotions begin to sound smaller. The voices that told you to stay realistic suddenly reveal their real purpose. They weren't protecting you from failure. They were protecting themselves from watching someone escape the limits they accepted. People often mistake confidence for arrogance because they can't imagine making decisions without approval. They assume you're reckless because they've spent so long asking everyone else how to live. They don't understand that confidence isn't believing you'll never fail. It's accepting that failure no longer has the authority to decide whether you move. The world has an interesting habit of respecting people only after they've already committed to themselves. Before success arrives, your confidence looks strange. Your ambition looks unrealistic. Your discipline looks obsessive. Then results appear, and the same people who questioned every step suddenly call it courage. Nothing about your decision changed. Only the evidence became visible. That's why permission is such a dangerous prison. It teaches you to value opinions more than progress, acceptance more than purpose, and safety more than possibility. The strongest people aren't the ones who silence every doubt. They're the ones who stop treating doubt like a manager. Fear still speaks. Uncertainty still whispers. Failure still waits somewhere ahead. The difference is that none of them get a vote anymore. They become passengers instead of drivers. And once that happens, the path in front of you no longer belongs to the crowd that watched from the sidelines. It belongs to the person who finally understood that the only signature required to change a life was always their own. Comfort has a strange way of disguising itself as peace. It never kicks the door down or forces you into submission. It simply invites you to sit for a while. Just one more day, one more excuse, one more reason to delay the difficult choice. It speaks so politely that you mistake it for wisdom. It tells you to wait until you're ready, until the timing is perfect, until the fear disappears. The problem is that comfort never intends to let you leave. It builds invisible walls around your routine, and after enough time, those walls begin to look like home. You stop questioning them because they've become familiar. Familiar feels safe, and safe feels intelligent. That's how years disappear without making a sound. The most dangerous prison isn't the one with locked doors. It's the one where you forget you're a prisoner. Every morning starts to resemble the last. The same habits, the same conversations, the same complaints, the same dreams that never move beyond imagination. You tell yourself you're being patient, but deep down you know you're just avoiding the discomfort that growth demands. Growth has never been polite. It interrupts your certainty. It exposes your weaknesses. It forces you to face the version of yourself you've been trying to ignore. That's why most people don't reject success. They reject the process that creates it. They want confidence without rejection, strength without struggle, discipline without sacrifice, and respect without earning it. Comfort sells them the fantasy that one day all of those rewards will arrive naturally if they simply wait long enough. It never tells them that waiting is exactly how potential disappears. Look closely at the people who constantly talk about what they could have been. They rarely lacked intelligence. They rarely lacked talent. More often than not, they became loyal to a comfortable routine that slowly replaced ambition. They chose certainty over possibility so many times that eventually they forgot possibility even existed. The frightening part is that comfort doesn't make you feel weak. It makes you feel reasonable. It gives your excuses sophisticated language. Instead of saying you're afraid, you say you're preparing. Instead of admitting you're avoiding risk, you call it being realistic. Instead of confessing you're attached to familiarity, you describe yourself as cautious. The words sound mature, but beneath them lives the same fear wearing a nicer suit. People around you often encourage this version of comfort because it makes them feel secure about their own decisions. If you never challenge yourself, they never have to question why they stop challenging themselves. The moment you decide to leave your comfortable routine, something unexpected happens. The same people who claim to support you suddenly become experts on everything that could go wrong. They don't always intend to hold you back. Sometimes your courage simply forces them to confront the dreams they abandoned years ago, and that's an uncomfortable mirror few people enjoy looking into. The irony is that every meaningful achievement begins with discomfort. Every skill feels awkward before it becomes natural. Every transformation feels chaotic before it creates clarity. Every new identity demands that an old one disappears first. Yet comfort convinces you that discomfort is a warning sign instead of evidence that you're entering unfamiliar territory. That's why so many people turn around the moment life becomes difficult. They assume resistance means they're on the wrong path, when often it's proof they're finally walking somewhere different. Comfort has one final trick that makes it almost impossible to detect. It doesn't ask you to quit forever. It only asks you to postpone today. Rest today, start tomorrow, speak later. Take the risk next month. One delay becomes another, and before long your future is built from thousands of tiny postponements that never felt important on their own. Your greatest opportunities rarely disappear all at once. They fade quietly while you're busy convincing yourself there's still plenty of time. That's why comfort remains the most dangerous trap. It never steals your dreams in a single moment. It teaches you to surrender them one harmless decision at a time until the life you once imagined becomes nothing more than a story you tell yourself about who you almost became. The moment you make a decision that most people are too afraid to make, something strange begins to happen. The room doesn't change, but the way people look at you does. The same people who once ignored your ideas suddenly become curious. The same voices that barely noticed your existence begin discussing your choices as if they were personally affected by them. That's because courage has a way of exposing hesitation. Every bold decision you make silently reminds someone else of the decision they never had the nerve to make. They won't always admit it. In fact, most of them won't even realize it themselves. They'll convince themselves that they're simply being realistic, concerned, or protective. But beneath those carefully chosen words is something much older and much more uncomfortable. It's the quiet realization that while they stayed exactly where they were, you kept moving. That realization is difficult to live with because it forces people to confront a question they've been avoiding for years. What if I could have done the same thing? That single question is heavier than criticism because once it enters the mind, excuses begin losing their power. It's easier to convince themselves that your decision was reckless than to admit their own fear has been wearing the mask of wisdom for a very long time. People often believe they dislike confidence, but confidence isn't what unsettles them. What unsettles them is watching someone refuse to obey the invisible rules everyone else silently accepted. Society has a strange habit of rewarding obedience long before it rewards courage. Stay predictable, stay quiet. Don't take unnecessary risks. Don't dream too loudly. Don't fail where everyone can see you. Those rules sound harmless until you realize they're designed to keep everyone comfortably average. The moment you ignore them, you become difficult to understand. Not because you're extraordinary, but because you're no longer asking permission to think differently. That alone creates tension. Suddenly, your actions become a mirror. Every step you take reflects the distance someone else refused to travel. Every sacrifice you accept highlights the comfort they protected. Every opportunity you chase reminds them of the opportunities they explained away with perfectly reasonable excuses. The funny thing about fear is that it rarely announces itself honestly. It almost never says, "I'm scared." Instead, it dresses itself as advice. It tells people to slow down, to be practical, to lower expectations, to avoid disappointment. Those phrases sound intelligent because fear has spent centuries improving its vocabulary. It learned that people reject cowardice but welcome caution. So instead of stopping dreams with force, it gently persuades them to become smaller. That's why many people who criticize bold decisions genuinely believe they're helping. They aren't trying to destroy your ambition. They're trying to protect the worldview that keeps their own choices comfortable. If you succeed after doing what they were too afraid to attempt, then their excuses begin falling apart. And excuses are often more valuable to people than uncomfortable truth. You'll notice something else as you continue moving forward. The louder your results become, the quieter your critics become. Not because they've changed their minds, but because reality leaves them with fewer places to hide. Before success, everyone has an opinion. After success, everyone suddenly claims they always believed in you. It's one of life's most amusing performances. The people who questioned your discipline begin calling it vision. The people who mocked your persistence begin calling it determination. The decision never changed. only the outcome became impossible to ignore. That's why seeking approval before acting is one of the greatest mistakes a person can make. Approval usually arrives after evidence, never before it. The people who truly admire courage aren't threatened by your choices because they're busy making difficult decisions of their own. They don't waste energy trying to pull others back to where they are. They understand that another person's growth doesn't reduce their own potential. But those who abandoned their ambitions long ago often become emotionally invested in seeing others remain ordinary. Your progress unsettles them because it quietly proves that change was possible all along. Not guaranteed, not easy, simply possible. And possibility is dangerous to someone who's built an identity around limitation. That's why the boldest decision you ever make isn't the one that earns applause. It's the one you make while knowing applause may never come. It's choosing movement over certainty, purpose over comfort, and action over endless permission. The world rarely fears your talent. It fears the example your courage becomes once you stop treating fear like an authority and start treating it like background noise while you continue walking forward. Every bold move begins with a quiet funeral. Not for your dreams, but for the version of you that can no longer survive if those dreams are going to become real. People love talking about new beginnings because they sound exciting. They picture fresh opportunities, bigger goals, and better lives. What they rarely talk about is what every new beginning demands in return. Growth is expensive. It never accepts loose change. It asks for identities, habits, beliefs, and comforts you've carried for years. The person who reaches the next level is never the exact same person who stood at the starting line. Something always gets left behind. The difficult part is that what you're leaving behind often feels familiar, and familiarity has a powerful way of pretending it's necessary. You convince yourself that you can't let go because it's been part of you for so long. But time doesn't make something valuable. Sometimes it only makes it comfortable. The first version of yourself that has to disappear is the one obsessed with being understood. There comes a point where explaining every decision becomes more exhausting than simply living it. You realize that people who truly want to understand you won't require endless explanations, and people determined to misunderstand you will never be satisfied with any explanation you give. That's when silence becomes more powerful than arguments. You stop defending your ambitions to people who have already decided your limits. You stop negotiating with opinions that were never invited to shape your future. That old version of you, the one desperate for approval, slowly fades away because it finally understands that approval has never built a meaningful life. Then another version begins to crack, the one addicted to certainty. You spent years believing that confidence comes before action, that clarity arrives before commitment, and that perfect timing exists somewhere in the future waiting to be discovered. But every meaningful step proves the opposite. Confidence is born during action, not before it. Clarity is created by movement, not endless thinking. Perfect timing is a story fear tells to keep you standing still. The more boldly you move, the more you realize that certainty was never a requirement. It was simply a luxury your dreams could no longer afford. Another identity quietly disappears the moment you stop measuring yourself against everyone else. Comparison is one of the most sophisticated distractions ever invented. It convinces you that someone else's timeline should determine your confidence. You celebrate less because someone else appears further ahead. You hesitate because someone else seems more talented. You delay because someone else looks more prepared. Meanwhile, life keeps moving while you're busy watching another person's race. The bold version of yourself understands something different. It knows comparison creates spectators, not builders. Every minute spent measuring someone else's progress is a minute stolen from creating your own. Eventually, the need to compete with everyone dissolves because you're too occupied competing with yesterday's version of yourself. Then comes perhaps the hardest goodbye of all. You lose the identity built around comfort. Comfort isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It whispers. It promises safety. It reminds you how nice it feels to avoid rejection, avoid failure, avoid embarrassment, avoid uncertainty. It paints ordinary routines with beautiful colors until they begin looking like success. But comfort always sends the same bill. It charges your potential. Every day you choose what feels easy instead of what makes you stronger. A quieter, smaller version of yourself takes control. The bold decision isn't simply stepping outside your comfort zone. It's refusing to move back into it after discovering how much of your life existed beyond its borders. People watching from the outside often think you've become colder. They mistake boundaries for arrogance. They mistake discipline for distance. They mistake focus for selfishness. They don't realize you're not abandoning people. You're abandoning the habits and mindsets that kept you trapped among unfinished dreams. Every transformation confuses those who only recognize your old identity. They expect the familiar reactions, the familiar fears, the familiar excuses. When those disappear, they assume you've changed for the worse because your evolution no longer fits the story they were comfortable telling about you. The strange beauty of every bold move is that it never asks you to become someone fake. It asks you to become someone honest. Honest about what you want. Honest about what you're avoiding. Honest about the habits destroying your future while pretending to protect your present. Every difficult choice strips away another layer of performance until what's left is someone no longer pretending to be smaller just to make other people comfortable. The old identity doesn't vanish because life takes it away. It disappears because one day you finally realize it was never designed to carry the weight of the future you're determined to build. There comes a point where you realize the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest. Noise has a way of creating the illusion of power, but illusion and power have never been the same thing. People announce their plans, defend their opinions, explain every move, and search endlessly for recognition, believing attention is proof of importance. They mistake visibility for value. They think if enough people notice them, they must be winning. But real strength doesn't rush to introduce itself. It doesn't beg for validation or perform for an audience. It moves differently, quietly, patiently, deliberately. The moment you understand this, silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling like a weapon that most people don't even know exists. Not because silence is mysterious, but because silence gives you something noise never can: control. Every unnecessary word is a piece of your energy handed to someone who didn't earn it. Every explanation offered to people committed to misunderstanding you is another distraction pulling you away from what actually matters. Most people reveal everything before they've built anything. They announce goals they haven't earned, celebrate victories that haven't happened, and expose every dream to people who secretly hope it never becomes real. They confuse talking with progress because talking feels productive. It creates the temporary satisfaction of movement without demanding the discomfort of action. But the strange thing about constantly speaking is that it slowly replaces the hunger to act. Once you've received praise for an idea, your mind begins treating the idea as if it has already accomplished something. That's why so many brilliant plans die before they ever take their first breath. They were exhausted by conversation long before they reached reality. Silence protects unfinished work. It allows discipline to grow where opinions cannot reach it. It creates space for results instead of applause. When you stop explaining yourself, something unexpected begins to happen. People start creating their own stories about you. Some assume you've become arrogant. Others think you've failed. A few believe you're hiding something. Let them. Human beings are uncomfortable with unanswered questions. They rush to fill empty spaces with assumptions because uncertainty bothers them more than fiction. The interesting part is that their assumptions have nothing to do with your reality. They are reflections of their own fears, expectations, and experiences. If someone assumes silence means weakness, it's often because they've never learned to stand without constant reassurance. If someone assumes silence means confidence, it's because they've experienced the strength that comes from inner certainty. Your silence becomes a mirror, and everyone sees something different depending on what's already inside them. Silence also changes the way you see yourself. Without constantly defending your decisions, you begin trusting them. Without chasing approval, you discover your own standards. Without reacting to every criticism, you learn which voices deserve your attention and which deserve your absence. The mind becomes sharper because it isn't wasting energy arguing with distractions. Discipline becomes stronger because it no longer depends on motivation delivered by compliments. Confidence becomes quieter because it doesn't need witnesses to exist. This kind of strength is difficult to recognize from the outside because it doesn't demand attention. It simply keeps moving while everyone else is busy discussing whether movement is possible. The world often underestimates quiet people because it judges presence by volume instead of substance. It notices those who speak first, not those who think deeply. It rewards confidence displayed on the surface while overlooking confidence built in solitude. But history has always favored those who spent more time preparing than announcing. Every meaningful achievement spends far longer in silence than it ever does in celebration. The foundation is invisible while it's being built. The roots remain hidden while the tree grows stronger. Only when the results become impossible to ignore do people suddenly wonder where all that strength came from. They never saw the countless moments where silence replaced excuses, where patience defeated impulse, where focus quietly outworked distraction. Eventually, you stop feeling the need to prove anything to anyone. Not because you've become indifferent, but because you've discovered that proof exists in outcomes, not arguments. The strongest response to doubt isn't a speech, it's consistency. The strongest answer to criticism isn't anger, it's progress. The strongest reply to people waiting for your failure isn't revenge. It's refusing to let their expectations become your reality. Silence doesn't mean you've stopped thinking. It means you've stopped wasting your thoughts on battles that never deserved them. While others compete for attention, you're building something attention alone could never create. While they measure influence by applause, you're measuring it by transformation. While they keep speaking about what they intend to become, you're quietly becoming someone who no longer needs words to convince the world that change has already begun. The world has an interesting habit. It laughs first and asks questions later. Before anyone sees results, your effort looks unnecessary. Your discipline looks obsessive. Your confidence looks unrealistic. People become experts at predicting your failure long before they've witnessed your persistence. They don't judge the destination because they can't see it yet. They judge the journey because it makes them uncomfortable. Every hour you invest while others are distracted becomes a silent accusation against the excuses they've accepted. Every sacrifice you make reminds them of comforts they refuse to give up. That's why the beginning of every meaningful journey is often filled with doubt, criticism, and quiet smiles that hide louder opinions. Most people don't mock the outcome. They mock the process because they cannot imagine enduring it themselves. It's fascinating how quickly opinions change once evidence arrives. The same person who questioned your decision suddenly starts calling it brave. The same voice that advised you to lower your expectations begins telling others they always believed in your potential. Nothing about your effort changed. The early mornings were still early. The failures still happened. The lonely nights didn't disappear. The only difference is that success became visible enough for people to attach themselves to it. Results have a strange power. They erase memories of criticism and rewrite history in favor of the winner. That's why waiting for approval before acting is one of the greatest traps you can fall into. Approval is almost always late. It arrives after the work is finished, after the risks have been taken, after the uncertainty has already been survived. Those who depend on applause before beginning rarely begin at all. Respect follows a similar pattern. People like to believe respect is earned through words, status, or confidence alone, but genuine respect has always been built through consistency. Anyone can make promises when the future is invisible. Anyone can sound determined before adversity appears. The real test begins when excitement disappears and discipline is all that's left. That's where most people quietly disappear. They don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they expected motivation to carry responsibilities that only commitment can sustain. Commitment keeps moving long after emotions become unreliable. It shows up when nobody is watching. It continues when recognition is absent. It keeps building while the world is still deciding whether your dream deserves to be taken seriously. There will always be people waiting for proof before they believe in you. That's not because they're cruel. It's because certainty feels safer than possibility. Believing in someone before success requires imagination, and imagination demands risk. If they support you too early and you fail, they fear looking foolish. So they wait, they observe, they remain neutral until the outcome becomes obvious. Then they step forward as if they had been beside you the entire time. Understanding this changes everything. You stop expecting encouragement from those who haven't earned the right to influence your direction. You stop feeling disappointed when others hesitate to support your vision, because you realize they're simply responding to what they can currently see. Vision has always belonged to the person walking the path, not the crowd watching from the sidelines. Failure itself carries an unexpected gift that very few people appreciate. Every setback quietly removes people who are only interested in easy victories. Some disappear because they lose confidence in you. Others leave because they were never committed to your growth, only your convenience. At first that feels painful, but over time you realize that pressure has an unusual way of revealing character. Difficult seasons expose who believes in effort and who only believes in outcomes. The people who remain during uncertainty become far more valuable than the ones who appear after success becomes fashionable. That's why surviving the difficult chapters changes more than your circumstances. It changes the company you keep, the standards you accept, and the conversations you entertain. The irony is that by the time respect finally arrives, you've usually stopped chasing it. Somewhere between rejection and resilience, something inside you changes. External validation loses its grip because you've already survived without it. You discover that confidence built through experience is far more stable than confidence borrowed from compliments. You no longer measure your worth by applause because you've learned how temporary applause can be. Crowds celebrate winners one day and criticize them the next. Opinions shift with headlines, trends, and emotions. Principles don't. Discipline doesn't. Character doesn't. That's why the strongest people aren't driven by recognition. Recognition is simply a byproduct of years spent doing what most people were unwilling to do while nobody was paying attention. By the time the world decides to respect your journey, you've already become someone who never needed permission, applause, or approval to keep walking through the very storms they once believed would make you turn.